If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. Really appreciate you listening. Tonight's guest was featured on episode 597, and because of how much detail there was to his encounter, we didn't have time. We didn't have close to enough time for me to ask him all the questions I had for him. And also on top of that too, I wanted to give the listeners in the live chat a chance to ask him questions as well. Well, what we planned to do was I planned to have him come back on last week for a special episode, but unfortunately his cable went down right before we were scheduled to air that show, that special midweek live stream episode. So luckily that's all back up and running. So we were able to bring him back on tonight. Well, without any further ado, let's bring that guest on now. James, thanks so much for coming back.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure's all mine. James, for anyone who missed episode 597, please tell them about yourself.
Yeah, that's simple country boy. From the country, loved it. Now I moved to Texas, a big city, a new experience for me. And I'm a manager at Subway. That's pretty much it. I got a little fat dog named Zero.
Yeah, speaking of Zero, you sent me that picture of him. I think it was last Tuesday, and he's absolutely adorable. I'm going to post his picture here in just a bit so everybody in the live chat, everyone who watches the YouTube version of the show can see him, but I can understand why you love him the way you do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's something else. James, when you sat up and locked eyes with that dog man that was staring at you through the window that night, what did you see in his eyes? Did you see fear, anger, or curiosity?
Curiosity. It looked like it was just as surprised as I was. Because I know when it was looking in there, it couldn't see me. It could see my brothers laying beside me and probably the knees on down to the feet of my sister and my youngest brother. But I know I could have seen my brother Tony, Mark, and James, the older one. His name is James also, James Evans Lover. And I knew I could see them, but it couldn't see me. So when I set up, I'm pretty sure I surprised it just as much as it surprised me.
Didn't you say that you were nose to nose with that dog man for about 45 minutes?
45 minutes, less than a foot and a half away from that thing. I watched that thing and I didn't move. It didn't move. And I was just locked. It was like I was paralyzed, like it was paralyzed. I couldn't believe it. I was trying everything in the book to make out what it was, but nothing clicked. And back then, that time in the 80s, I've never seen anything like that.
Oh, no, I'm sure you hadn't. When you're going through your encyclopedia of what it could have possibly been, nothing would fit. Nothing would match anything like that. So I can only imagine the thoughts that were going through your head. But talking about what you saw in its eyes, if you were locking eyes with it for 45 minutes, in most cases, eyewitnesses are going to report a shift from one type of emotion in its eyes to the next, and then to the next. Maybe curiosity at one point, and then you're staring daggers in my eyes, anger, because you're challenging me. And then maybe cooling down a little bit and back to curiosity or some other emotion. You never saw any shift like that in its eyes?
There was no shift whatsoever. Nothing moved on it. After his ears went back and his eyes followed me when I laid back down at an angle, I nearly laid on top of one of my brothers. Nothing about it changed. It was just in the window looking at me. The only thing moved was his eyes following me as I laid back, and it was no anger, no nothing. Like it was just like it was surprised. It was like curious. And I'm pretty sure I had the same look in my eyes. I'm trying to figure out what it was, and I'm thinking, it's trying to figure out what I am. And that's why I say that's the reason I wasn't scared, because it is no teeth showing or nothing, no growling, no aggressive movement. His eyes were basically like Zero's, calm, just curious.
When it comes to having Dogman encounters, I think you hit the lottery as far as the Dogman that came to pay you a visit that night, because most of them, they would have had a captive audience. You're right there nose to nose with it. They could have pushed all sorts of your buttons, but yeah, that Dogman, thank goodness it didn't do any of that.
None of it.
That's really good. Now, I know you say when you first locked eyes with it that it had its ears pinned. At any point of that 45 minutes, did it ever put its ears back up?
It ears never went back up. When I set up, what I noticed first was its hands. That's what was tapping on that one and like, and that what woke me up. And I set up, and as my eyes adjusted, I seen the hands stop. And then when the ears went back, and that's what caught my attention for the second thing that moved when his ears went back. And from that moment till I watched it for those 45, 50 minutes until that the rest of the 2 hours I watched as I laid back, the ears never came back up. They stayed bent backwards.
That
Never come back up.
That could be seen two ways. Obviously, if you're talking about a dog or a horse, if they pin their ears, normally that's a sign of anger, but it's going to use its ears for information gathering. Well, you're right there within less than a foot and a half from it. If you're going to make any noise, it's going to be able to see that you're making a noise, so it doesn't need its ears for that. Maybe it pinned its ears just because of the intensity of the moment. I can't think for this thing. All I can do is just guess. And as we go through tonight's show, I'm not going to try to put any words into your mouth. That's the last thing I'd want to do. So when I ask you about things like this, yeah, just tell me what you experienced and I'll do the best I can not to influence you. But maybe it pinned its ears. What I'm getting at here is maybe it pinned its ears because it didn't want to intimidate you, maybe, or just because of no other reason than it didn't need its ears. It had you right there nose to nose with it, so there wasn't
Well,
really any need to listen. So
well,
maybe
like
that's
I
what was
said,
behind it.
like I say, Zero, like I say, the ears went back exactly like his, and that you may be right, and it probably right. At times, Zero pin his ears back. He is a little angry.
Wow, that just had to be through the roof. It really must have been. Not all, but a lot of eyewitnesses who've been that close to a dogman as you were for all that time, they reported an unusual quality that the dogman's retinas had. Did you notice anything strange? Any strange qualities about its retinas when you were that close to it? I know you said it had eyes pretty close to Zero's, only quite a bit larger, but did you notice anything strange, unusual about its retinas?
Nothing strange about it. Blackish brown eyes, and when I say it looked exactly like Zero eyes, and I can see just a little bit of white in them on both corners of his eyes, and a little bit in the between it, his nose was, and that was it. And his eyes were just basically like Zero's, a German Shepherd like eyes, or well, not German Shepherd. What's that dog called?
Chewini.
Yes, not the Chiweenie. I had one of those dogs a long time. Look, Golden Retriever.
Wow.
Golden Retriever. I was similar like that, and Zero eyes is similar to a Golden Retriever.
Wow,
Just calm looking.
You really did hit the lottery. When it comes to dogmen, yeah, you definitely hit the lottery because in almost every other case, it's going to be a lot more intense than that. Thank goodness it wasn't more intense.
Oh yeah. One thing I can tell you, I am awesome with dogs. I own at least 30 dogs, and I could pretty much make them do anything I want. They just love me. I had so many of them, like Zero. He sleeps with me. I had when I was in Avery, that when my father lived, on my grandmother lived on my dad's side, and I had dogs. I tell them go do this, and they pretty much go do it. It's almost as if they understood me. So I don't know. I wasn't aggressive toward it, so maybe it was just like, okay, we're just gonna look at each other until somebody gives up.
Normally with these guys, they don't care if you're aggressive or not. They're going to just do all they can to push your buttons and mortify you to within an inch of your life. That's why I'm saying you really hit the lottery when it comes to dogmen you could have had an encounter with. Thank goodness, like I said, for that as well. And as far as you being good with dogs, that's great. But when it comes to these guys, I don't need to tell you, we don't know how much of that crosses over to them. Maybe somebody can be great with dogs, but I really doubt that anybody's going to be able to count on being good with dogmen. I don't think that could be the case.
I don't either. Like I say, this one here, well, like you say, I must have hit the lottery, and I'm pretty much glad I did. I mean, if that thing would have been growling or did anything like that, I can only think back. I don't know. Well, I got a general idea of what I would have done. It would have put some fear in me. And to see something like that, you don't know what it is, and I couldn't figure it out because, like I said, it had its head down, and I couldn't really make out that snout until Zero here had his head down, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what I saw.
Well, like I said, I can only imagine what must have been going through your mind at the time. And understandably so. Now, you said that it pinned its ears right from the start, but was there somehow, some way that you got a bead on how long its ears might have been?
Its ears, I would put them as longer than my hands because when I looked up, I saw them going back. I would put his ears at about 7 inches, 7 to 8 inches.
Well, that's pretty long. That's pretty close to as long as a mule.
It was pretty long when I see them, and the way they went back, I'm like, okay, look, could have been like two horns. I wasn't thinking about horns then. Only thing I seen was some brown ears, same color as Zero's. Go back, but they were more pointed than Zero's ears.
That's just amazing. It really is. Did its ears seem to be on the sides of its head or more on top?
It was more on top of his head, more on top, further up than Zero's would be. Basically, proximity above his eyes. If you take it and just take both his eyes was pretty wide apart and go up, those ears were nearly level with his eyes.
So pretty much the same positioning as a German Shepherd then.
Yes.
Okay, well, I see. That's kind of what I expected. Did it have its mouth open or closed at the time?
His mouth stayed closed the entire time. Never opened his mouth, never showed any teeth or nothing. Just stood there looking at me frozen.
So if it kept its mouth closed the whole time and it never showed its teeth, with a lot of dogmen, even though their mouths are closed, you can still see their canines protruding. It sounds like you never saw anything like that.
No, maybe they were been protruding, but like I say, his head was down. And it had it down like this. All I could see was the black tip of his nose at the bottom of the window, and his nose going leading on up into his eyes. And I like to say, maybe if it had his nose out straight out, maybe teeth may have been protruding out. The canines may have been sticking out. But like I say, we was face to face, and I was looking at it face down, and never see any teeth. Glad I did.
Oh, I bet you are glad. I'm glad you didn't see any either. That wouldn't have been good at all. When it held its head down in a posture where it was almost looking through its eyebrows at you. I don't know if a dogman has eyebrows or not. I guess they don't. But anyway, when it had that head down posture, did you get the impression it did that because if it would have had its muzzle up, pointing straight at you, that it would have had a hard time keeping both eyes on you? Or do you think it kept its head down so it was less intimidating to this little boy?
No, I guarantee you, it kept his head down because it's snout, as I know now, was too long for it to be that close. So it had to put his snout down because, like I said, it was a very small one. And pretty much if his snout was up, it would have been sitting back. It would have been back a lot further from that window. So it's had his snout down, it's closer with his eyes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So if it's 18 inches away from you, that makes sense. Then its forehead was probably 9 inches from the glass and your face was probably 9 inches. So that does make sense. If it had its head up, it couldn't have been that close.
Nope.
Wow.
And that's what tricked me. At first, I didn't recognize the snout until, like I say, when Zero did. And then it took me back to that night just as if I was there. And I'm like, okay. And I remember the snout down, seeing the tip of the black nose. Perfect example.
Yeah, I'd say it must have been. Before I go any further with the questioning, I want to post a picture of your main man here, Zero, so
Okay.
everyone can see him. There he is. How old
And
is
that
he?
he's 2 years old now.
Yeah, he's adorable. He really is.
And that's exactly how that thing had his head down like that. And I was looking at it.
I can only imagine the thoughts going through your
But
head. I can't say that enough. I said that a couple of times and I just can't say it enough. I can only imagine what that must have been like.
like I
Yeah,
say, I got that thing now. And when I say it shrunk down and I got him, that's what I always tell myself. You shrunk down and came back to me.
that is amazing. So the same proportions, everything, the length of its ears to the size of its head, everything was the same pretty much.
Pretty much the same. It's just gigantic. Let's take Zero head and sharpen those ears a little bit, put him a little closer inward, and make his head the size of probably a basketball with a football sticking out of it, and you got that thing.
So the same eye color, same nose color, everything.
Yeah, the black nose, like I said, it was a little bit darker. You see a little brownish on, I guess, on Zero nose, but his nose was solid black. No scratches or anything. It had that one, and fur was beautiful. It was nice peanut butter, cardboard color. It was not. It just seemed like it was groomed, and that's what got me. I'm looking at something up there, and that's the reason I wasn't scared, because it didn't look shaggy, raggedy, or beat up or muddy and nothing like that. It just looked like it was a well groomed. Maybe the body wasn't, but I didn't see that. Wish I would have, but I didn't see the body.
That's one of the many strange things about these guys. So many credible eyewitnesses, such as yourself, they report that just left the groomers look to them, where their fur is perfect. Others see nasty ones that look kind of mangy, but a lot of them report that the dogmen they saw were just clean. It really makes you wonder how that could be, but even though we wonder how that can possibly be, it seems like that's a pretty common thing, so it is what it is.
Yeah,
It is. Now, this might seem like a strange question, but you're so close to its face, you're the perfect person to ask. At any time, did you ever notice if it had any whiskers or not?
I didn't see any whisker. If it did, I mean, like I say, once I looked up and seen the blackness of his nose and his ears went back, and my eye automatically went back to its eyes. And from that moment on, we locked eyes. I mean, I could see my peripheral vision, the face and all that, but the eyes were the most important thing I was looking. I just looking at his eyes, and it was looking at me. It never took his eyes off me. I think I took my eyes off of it a couple times, see was anybody else waking up, and looked over at that clock, and shifted my eyes slowly back, still looking at me. Didn't move a muscle, nothing moved. Maybe his body may have moved. I didn't know, because like I said, I didn't see it, but his head never moved. His hands never moved again. And there were hands like
That
Zero's, but longer, a lot longer.
you can say a lot of things about that dog man, but one thing you can't say is that he was comfortable with eye contact. If he kept eye contact with you the whole time, all 45 minutes, that says it all right there.
Oh yes,
Yeah, it really does. Now, you got a really good look at its hands, you said. Was there anything notable, though, about its fingers that you noticed?
they were long and bent inwards. It had, because when it was scratching, I seen them as it was still scratching. The screen was pretty much torn and gone. It's just a little window it couldn't open. It's a little small window, and I guess it had tore through the screen. What woke me up is when it started tapping on the window. So the way its fingers were, both of them was up there, and they was bent forward when I looked up, and it just froze. Both fingers, both hands was in the same position, just really long, folded over like that, and it froze. It just froze solid, and it looked at me. Only other movement it made when his ears went back, and that was it. Brown hands, like you see, short, brown fur, like this nut here, Zero, who's trying to jump up on the bed, but just like he has just stretched out so long, and the way that little seal came up on the window, I couldn't see if it had. I'm sure it did, because it tore that screen, but I didn't see that any claws or anything.
I put some thought into whether I was going to ask you this or not, and I think I'm just going to ask you. At any time after having that experience, James, do you ever start to wonder how many times, how many nights you were laying in bed and it paid you a visit, but you didn't know about that?
From that night forward, every time we visited back up there, and like I say, I always slept over there by that window. I made it my business to lay at an angle, and I watched that window until I fell asleep. And I used to think, even to this day, I think how many times that thing watched us in that window, how many times it watched my grandparents, my mother in the other room, how many times it's been down there by that pond and was just watching us pushing those tires and playing cops and robbers down there in that ditch. I mean, and how many times it's been watching the Mr. L who stayed about 100 yards up from my grandfather and his son, about 600 yards down. How many times has it visited their house? Has it visited any? Those three houses I've seen, the one a little bit further up, but it's just shocking to say, okay, we've been down here at night. I used to be outside by myself at night, just sitting on the hood of my mama's car looking at the stars. How many times would that thing may have been hiding behind the shed looking at me? It could have been over in that ditch looking at me. Just didn't know, but it put me on alert.
Oh, I bet it did. Back to the hands there, James. When it comes to the joints of its fingers, it's been a long time, so you probably don't remember this, but did you by chance notice anything about its joints that seemed a little off that you can remember?
Its joints, it was like almost like three joints were to the hand, like it could bend it out. Well, we got our fingers about an inch, the little slot in the middle of it, and it was so long, it just looked like just stretching a dog's paw out, and almost like it's formed a hand. Like just a dog paw so big that I don't know if it was actual hands, but they resemble basically my hands just 100 times longer with color. I'm about the same color, zero, and his paws just stretch them out, and I could see they was just long and bent over like it was almost a fist, about half a fist. It was just like this right here, but about 3 times longer than mine.
Yeah, they do have big hands. I don't know if you knew this or not, but the really big ones, 12-footer, it can have hands as big as a trash can lid.
Oh man, they were big.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. They get really big. Yeah, that's big enough to reach around your waist almost to pick you up.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's too big right there. After the fact, you and your brother thought about the possibility, but did you think about how easily that dog man could have come into your house, broken into your house before you fell back to sleep that night?
Only thing I was thinking about as I laid back, like I say, it was an outhouse back there, and my grandmother and my mom, they wouldn't go out there. They had a pan over that they would use to relieve themselves. But my grandfather and me and my older brother, we take our younger brother if they need to go use the outhouse, and we go out there ourselves solo, me and my older brother. Cause like I said, we didn't was scared of nothing. But at that time, I was like, I hope I don't hear that back door open. Because I know if either my granddad's going out, or I could tell if my brother was going out, 'cause he was at the end of the bed down there, it would have had to be my granddad. And I would have jumped up then and said, okay, don't go out there. There's something out there. And I was just hoping that none of my siblings woke up, especially the younger one, because it would have been a panic. They'd have seen that thing, and I know, especially the youngest one. If he'd have stood set up on the other man with my sister, he would have went to screaming and hollering, "What's that thing in the window?" And don't know what would have happened.
Thank goodness that didn't happen. Although that dog man really does seem like it was one heck of a cool, calm, customary dog man. So even if they would have woke up and started screaming, I don't think it would have done anything dangerous like that. But then again, I can't think for these things. All I can do is guess. That's all I can do. Now, we've already established the fact that you two remain locked face to face for about 45 minutes, but as far as you locking eyes with it and staying locked with it that long, was that because you weren't afraid of it breaking the window and grabbing you, or was it for another reason?
Well, I wasn't afraid because, like I say, the size of that window, it probably could have, big as it was, it probably could have knocked that entire side of that little thin little wall of the house. But at that time, being so young, and not really know what it was. The size of that window, if it would have broke that window, the only thing it could have put, it couldn't even put his head in there. It would have been able to just put his arms in there. One of his arms probably could have came in there, but as far as it would have went, and I would just scurried on over to the other side of the bed. And like I say, I knew I seen it in the window, and I knew it couldn't get in that window to me at that time because of the smallness of that window. It could have easily got in one of those back doors, but like I say, it didn't seem to me like it went anywhere near the back door because it was still in the window. And like we had 2 loaded shotguns on the end of the bed down there. And I could have got to them shotguns far before it could have got to that. Well, I don't know how fast they are. I heard they're really fast. But as far as it getting in that back door, I'm pretty sure me and my brother would have had those shotguns in our hands before it come through that door. And if it would have busted that window, it could have just only stuck his hand in there. That's as far as I knew.
If it would have come through that door, I'm not too sure that the guns would have kept you safe from it. It's hard to say. Sometimes guns are effective, sometimes they aren't. I'm just so glad, I'm tickled pink that you never had to find out. Thank goodness.
Me too. I'm glad, like I say, like I said, at that young age, and to have the bolt action shotgun. My brother had a Revelation 12 gauge pump action shotgun, and like I say, at that age, and we were thinking we was indestructible anyway. We were thinking those things because the gun could stop anything, and that's pretty much what really kept me from really panicking or being afraid. Like I said, I don't fear pretty much nothing but than a catfish, but I wasn't scared because, like I say, it didn't show any aggression at all, and that pretty much kept me calm. I'm like, okay, this thing just looking at me, whatever it is, and next thing I know, I'm woke.
Well, you deserve a lot of credit, James, for holding it together because very few people could have held it together close as well as you did. Most people, they'd be sucking soup through a straw the rest of their lives. But yeah, you had that experience, a really intense experience, not because of how the dogman behaved, but 18 inches or less from that dogman face to face with it for 45 minutes. That's still intense. And you're still holding it down. So, like I said, you deserve a lot of credit for that because you've done something, you're doing something that very few people could do.
Also, my brother, like I say, when he told me, like I say, I'm chalking it up as a dream the next morning. He told me, "Did you see that thing in the window?" So evidently, it really didn't, put too much of fear in him because, like I say, he saw it at some point. Whether he saw it before I woke up, whether he saw it after I laid back, or when I fell asleep, we never discussed that. I don't know what time he saw it or when he saw it, but I know he saw it too.
Yeah, I'd say that's undeniable there. Before I go any further, if you're in the live chat and have any questions you want me to ask James for you, please type it in all caps. That way I won't miss it. James, I'm so glad your encounter didn't stop you from heading back into the woods, but can you do that present day and enjoy yourself? Or are you still looking around and almost paranoid about the possibility that another dogman might be out there?
No, I go fishing, I go hunting. I got a friend that own a ranch, and we go out to his ranch, and he got targets and stuff set up, and we go out there and sight in our shotguns and rifles, and I mean, the thought it's there when it start getting nighttime, but I'm looking around, but like I say, I'm the type of person I got full confidence in my weapons. Not that I would use them. I mean, I'd rather, like I say, the rifles I got and the shotguns I got, they got infrared and they can also record. And I would love to see one to try to record it. As far as shooting it, no. I'm not gonna shoot one if that's the last thing I want to do. I just want to put one on my night vision camera, which I can actually take it off the gun and use it with my hands. I got several of them that I could do that with. But like I say, I want to see another. I want to see a full body. I just don't want to see the hands, ears, and face. I want to see just how big. I know they get big, and I know people describe them 7 to 12 foot tall. I wanted to just see one fully, riding by, passing by at 80 miles an hour. I keep going. I just want to see one.
You never know. Someday down the road, you just might see another one. If you do have another encounter, though, I sure hope it's a good one. It's one that's not going to rattle you the way this one did. It was pretty, I'm not going to say it was benign, but That encounter was as benign as a dogman encounter could be. A dogman encounter can be almost. I mean, you were 18 inches away from it face to face. So that right there is pretty intense, whether it snarled at you or acted aggressive. But still, I mean, everything considered, it was a pretty good dogman encounter.
That's the good thing. Like I say, being at that age, still in high school, and like I say, I was just young and bold. That it feared nothing. Nothing. I've been in cages with bulls and on the back of horses down in Abbey, Georgia, and they wasn't broken in or just scared of nothing. Just went anywhere I wanted to go, climb trees, hanging out bridges, hanging out the side of the USS Nimitz, the aircraft carrier, CVN 68, and it kept me into swimming with snakes and catching them. It didn't make me no different what it was. I just wasn't scared of anything. Now, if that thing would have been growling, snarling, showing teeth and all that, probably so.
Oh, yeah, that would change everything.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I said before, thank goodness it wasn't that way with you, because that would have definitely changed the complexion of it. It really would have. Like I said, everyone, if you have any questions you want me to ask James for you, if you're in the live chat, please go ahead and type it in all caps. That way I won't miss it. James, after Mr. L cited in your scope for you, you said that you had a lot of confidence when it came to your ability to hit what you're aiming at. But if that dogman would have come back around that night, the night that you and your brothers saw it and were later on laying in that ditch, how sure are you that you actually would have shot it?
100%. Because, like I say, after he sighted that rifle in, and to this day, I can take my rifle and hit targets at 1,000 yards. So it's easy. I've done it all my life. Like I said, me and my older brother, we started out with pellet guns. We got so good, we used to set matches, the little strike matches out there, the boxes out there, and the matches, and then shoot them with pellet guns and knock them over. Shotgun with the spread of the buckshots or bird shots coming out. We didn't have to really too much aim. But I got so good with that 30-06, and I got 30-06 now. I could hit anything. I could hit a cantaloupe at 500 yards with that thing, with that high power scope. It's child's play.
You're a nail driver then.
Oh yes, I'm one of the best. I consider myself one of the best. One of the best.
Yeah, I can understand why if you can do that. You're surgical. You've always been one of those people who have had to see it to believe it, James, but did your dogman encounter have any effect on that? Present day, are you more open-minded or are you still skeptical about things?
I was skeptical up until that point until Zero got up on my arm, and because like I say, I used to watch your Dogman encounters, and I see yours and a couple other people's and Sasquatch encounters, and I'm talking about, okay, misidentification, somebody putting a suit on and their friends over on one side of the road, and as soon as a car come by, they run across with the suits, and then their friends take pictures of it, and they hop on the back of the truck and they go home, and there they go, they claim they seen a Sasquatch or a dog, man. I don't think, okay, could it have been a hologram? I mean, could it be a hologram projector or something like this right here? I heard a lot of people say, dog man looked like it was floating running across the street. And I said, okay, it could have been a hologram projector or something. It just all kind of wild things went through my mind to try to rationalize the encounters I was seeing on television. Little did I know that I've seen a live one, a real, breathing live one. And I chalked it up, like I say, if people make it misidentified, a bear standing up against a tree, scratching his back like they do, maybe they saw that. Maybe a deer was at an awkward position. They saying that how long the dog man was when it was on 4 feet. I'm thinking, okay, maybe you see one dog man with his head down and another one with his head up and standing close to each other, and you misidentified that from a distance as how long it was. But like I say, now I know those people actually saw those things because I saw one.
Yeah, that you did. No denying that. Now, some eyewitnesses, after having really traumatic encounters with dogmen, do all they can to avoid even thinking about them. Others, on the other hand, become obsessed with trying to find out all they can. Which group would you say that you fit into,
I
or
put
you
in
fit
the
somewhere in between?
I fit in the group of trying to find out I watch your Dogman encounter every night. Every night I watch, so I even go and watch one that I've seen before, and I'm listening, and I'm taking in all the information. I'm taking in the area they seen them in, if they showed a timeline or wherever they seen them in, especially like I'm here in Texas, Killeen, Texas, so close around like Austin, Lampasas, Gatesville, and I heard a few people say they seen them in Gatesville because of a bunch of country out there in Gatesville. I've even taken my car and rode out there with my night vision goggle and just parked side the road and just took that night vision thing. It'll go at least 800 yards and just scan the area. It got to me a point I just obsessed with seeing a full body. Now, I've seen nothing. I've seen some deers and wild hogs and coyotes, stuff like this right here. And I'm like, stand up, please. That's what I'm telling myself. I've seen this coyote. Please stand up. I'm telling myself.
Huh. Yeah, you really caught the bug. That's pretty normal. You live your life believing that the world operates one way, but someday, some night, more accurately, you find out that the world is totally different than you've been told it is. It's only natural that you're going to try to investigate whatever it was that upset your world view. You're going to research that all you can. So, yeah, that's what I would expect when it comes to how you've responded. There's no surprise when it comes to that to me at all. There really isn't. Well, let's get to some of the questions from the live chat members. The first one up is from Poncho Zorch, and Poncho wants to know what its arms look like.
Well, I didn't see any arms. Like I say, only thing I saw was his hands, its face, and his ears. And the way his hand was, it's like he had his hands down, but his arms down, but his hands up. And hands up, folded up like a half fist, and that's how I wish I would have seen the arms, so I couldn't tell you how long they were they shaggy, was it short fur or long fur. I just seen the hands, never seen his arms.
So it had its hands up and over the windowsill, the
Yeah,
ledge.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. The next one up is from Lely Belly, and they want to know what color was it. You said it was peanut butter colored, but they also want to know, did it seem to be more of a pup than an adult?
To me, it was just big. I mean, I can at that time. Well, I can say now, I would put it as an adult, pretty much an adult, as far as I know from what I've heard, how people seen. But like a sub adult, I put it that way, a sub adult. Because like I say, that one though, we had to stand up on a tire just looking at one. And I was at that time 5'5", and I know that tire was at least 3 foot tall. That put that thing over 8 feet tall. And I don't know if it may have been bending over looking at the one for all I know, but I know it was at least a little bit over 8 feet tall.
Yeah, that's big enough right there. That definitely is. The next question is from Scott Lee. Scott wants to know, now before I ask this question, I'm going to qualify it. His question, if you listen to James talk about what he experienced, you might say, okay, well, James already answered that. But Scott wants to know, I'll just read his question and then I'll finish qualifying it. Scott wants to know, did it have a terrifying look about it or was it a beautiful one? Now, even though it wasn't apoplectic, it was just looking at James through the window without showing any expression. It still could have been, this one wasn't, it still could have been frightening to look at. So don't just dismiss his question out of hand as having already been answered. But yeah, just understand that even though it wasn't acting aggressive towards James, it still could have been frightening to look at. But yeah, I just wanted to qualify that before I do share this question with you. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Scott's question is, did it have a terrifying look about it or was it a beautiful one?
To me, it was a beautiful look. Like I say, it looked like a giant version of Zero. And now I guarantee you, had my younger sibling woke up, pure terror, it would have scared them half to death if they had seen the size of his head and his fingers, like the long hand fingers and all that. It would have scared them to death. Like I say, I'm the type of person that I put my confidence in those weapons with the two shotguns we had down there. Plus, it was my older brother was down there, and we both could shoot real good. So when we thinking at that time, those shotguns could stop anything, and that's when and it wasn't aggressive looking, so it never put any fear. It startled me when I first looked up because I'm trying to figure out what it was. Now, had I went outside and things may have changed. I may have been running back in that house.
Oh, yeah, you just might have, and understandably so. And you just mentioned that you're right there trying to figure out what it was. This is a perfect question to follow up that statement with. Cookies and Cream wants to know, do you think it was a male or a female dog man?
If I had to make a decision, I would think it was male because, like I said, it had the same. Zero's a male, and it had the same like characteristics of him. Just with the wideness of his head, bigger head. But some female, of animals, they're larger than the male, so it could quite possibly have been a female. Like I say, I didn't see chest or anything. I just, like I say, from the head, ears, and hands, that's it. So it could have went both ways. It could have been male or female. I just don't know.
Yeah, you're just doing the best you could to hold it together and try to gather as much info as you could. Like I said, I think you deserve a lot of credit for the way you handled that. You really do. Most people wouldn't have done nearly as well. This next question is from Wandering Bull 369, and he wants to know, how old were you? I think you must have missed episode 597.
I was young. I was around between 16 years old, 14, 15 to 17. I would put it at 14 to 17 years. I know I was still in high school. And like I say, then running around those pellet guns, shotguns, then eventually 30 six. I didn't have sense enough to have fear. I put it that way.
Yeah, that's how most of us were back then at that age. So can't fault you for that. It looks like Ann must have missed episode 597 because she wants to know, James, did you say you're afraid of catfish? Why so?
My brother caught a catfish at that pond behind my granddad's house, and he had my granddad's old steel reeling rod and very large catfish. And as he pulled him up on that bank, the bank was like at a slope, and that line broke. And that fish was flopping around trying to get back into that water. And me being an idiot, ran down there and grabbed that fish with both my hands on the side of his head with those two, whatever pointy things on his side. And it must have stuck them both up. And it made me turn it loose. And from that day forward and to this day here, I will not pick up a catfish for nothing.
Yeah, it hurts, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'll get your motor running. It looks like the next question is from lucky number 6, and he wants to know, or she wants to know, did James see any hair or fur or paw prints left behind the next day?
Nothing. Only thing that was noticeable was the torn screen. We know for a fact that screen wasn't torn. But like I say, that previous day, we play hide and go seek, and to get up there and looking at, because our grandma would have killed us, my granddad would have killed us, and we'd have tore that screen. And the grass around the house was sitting up on bricks, old house sitting up on bricks, or stone bricks, whatever, and couldn't see anything. And at that time, I wasn't thinking to go look at that field because the field was plowed up, but it had no plants there. And it probably was footprints out there, but we weren't even thinking about that, about looking for footprints. I wish I would have, but we weren't even thinking about looking for footprints.
Well, that's totally understandable. It really is. It's not until recent times when the idea of trying to collect evidence is really in the forefront of most people's minds when it comes to an experience like that. So, totally understandable. It looks like the next question is from Wandering Bull. And Wandering Bull wants to know, James, at any point did you think to take a picture of the dog man?
I had nothing at that time to take a picture with it. Nothing, back then, no cell phones back then with us. If they were, we didn't know about them. And the camera was an old Polaroid that actually shoots the picture out, but we didn't have anything like that. Like I say, I wished I would have. I definitely would have took a picture of it, but like I probably, even if I had a camera, I wouldn't have been thinking about that camera. I would have just been looking at that thing. And that's what I say about a lot of people think They got their cell phones and they see these things. The first thing they think people's gonna do is grab their phone. No, they're not. Half the people will be in shock. They're not thinking about that cell phone. They're thinking about living.
You're right. You're right. I heard somebody on a podcast mention if we put you in a cage at the zoo with a lion, how many pictures are you going to get of that lion? And that's a great
Zero,
point.
zero, zero
That's right.
pictures.
I apologize if we got that interference again. Like I said on an earlier episode, someone in the area where the studio is has got an ungrounded antenna, and that's
Oh,
what
okay.
causes that sound. So again, I apologize. Hopefully they'll
That's okay.
stop. But the next question for you is from Kelly Ann. I think she missed episode 597 as well. Kelly wants to know, where did this happen? What part of the country?
It's Georgia, and it's a old country part, Vienna, Georgia, or Vienna. I pronounce it Vienna, but it was in Vienna, Georgia. It was out from the town, out in the country, way about 5 miles from town, out in the country, about 3 miles away from Interstate 75 that runs straight through Cordia, Vienna, Dooley County, on up to Atlanta. And it was out in the country, nothing but woods and fields.
Yeah, perfect area for a dogman to be. The next question for you is from Michigan Meat Eater, and he wants to know, have you had any other experiences after this?
No, and at that time, I wished I did. Like I say, after that, we've been down there 100 more times. After that, I watched that window, never seen anything about that. Didn't go outside. And in the daytime, that's when I mentioned my dad brought the 30-hour stick with the scope on it. I used to stand up on a big iron pot in the back of my granddad's house and just scan that tree line where the pond was, hoping that I would see at least come to drink some water or just walk out or either stand there looking at me. I just never seen it again. Only thing I heard anything close about that is when my brother eventually had a girlfriend named Dorothy, when they said something ran out in front of their car in front of Georgia Pacific.
Yeah, you handled it exactly how people would, almost anyone would handle a situation like that. So, yeah, that was textbook how you handled that. The next question is from KL, and KL wants to know, did you say that from Georgia? That's my home state. Yeah, you just answered that. So we can move on to the next one, which is from To Be or Not to Be. They want to know, did you feel like it was intelligent?
Yes, I can tell from the eyes that it was intelligent. That those eyes, I could look into his eyes. Same way with Zero. Like I say, that same look in his eyes, and I know Zero's intelligent. I've seen Zero take a pencil in his mouth and get something off on the table. I watched him do that.
That is smart. Yeah, really smart little guy. This next one is from Spicy Housewife, and she wants to know, has your family been informed about your encounter? And if yes, what was their reaction?
No, I've never told anyone in my family. Only one know about that was me and my older brother, because at that time, we didn't want to scare, the younger siblings or the older one. My grandmother, my grandfather, my mother thought we probably was crazy, and we never did tell anybody. They didn't tell them one thing, because there's been times when my mother actually went down there by herself and we stayed home. Me and my older brother, she took the younger brothers right there, and we wanted to tell them, but like I said, our brother, that thing probably long gone. So we never, because like I said, hundreds of times after that we was down there, nothing even remotely close to it, anything coming to that woman except for that little small glare of light from the light that was over by the shed. We never told my mother or my grandmother or anybody that. Only people I ever told was people I worked with.
It really was a different time back then. People are so much more open to things like this now than they were back then. It's totally understandable why you didn't share it. I get it. The next question is from Christina Easterday, and she wants to know, did all your dogs react at all when this dogman was at your window for 45 minutes?
No, my dogs, they were about 20 miles away. They was in Araby, Georgia, at my grandmother's house on my father's side. That's where a dog was. I never had a dog down to my grandfather's house, and my granddad had two black Labrador retrievers, and that was at that time I was probably about 12 or 13 years old, and to this day I don't know what happened to those dogs. Only thing I know, he had two Labradors to play with, and after that they were gone. And like I said, I never had or owned a dog that I took down there to my grandfather's house in Vienna, Georgia. That was my mother's mama and father, but I never had a dog down there.
Does make you wonder how they would have responded. This next one is from Christina Easterday also, and you touched on this already. She wants to know, what color were the eyes? Same color as Zero, I guess a darker brown, and then dark brown or black, I think you said, didn't you?
Yep.
Okay. And then she also wants to know if it smiled at you, and you said that it kept its mouth closed the whole time.
Yeah, it kept no smile, no grimace, no baring his teeth, no lips going back like Zero do sometime when I aggravate him, but nothing. It was like it was somebody just put a picture of it there. It was just that still. I know it was living. If I can look at his eyes, the only thing moved with his eyes when I laid back down. His eyes were just following me. Three things moved: his eyes, those hands, and those ears when he went back. That's the only thing that moved on that thing.
Other than being there at your bedroom window in the middle of the night, it handled itself about as well as could be expected or hoped. So thank goodness for that. Stephen Truthseeker wants to know if there was a smell.
No, there was no smell. Like I say, I was inside. It was on the outside, and I no smell whatsoever I could think of. No smell.
That answer is that. Christine Easterday also wants to know if it had tufts on the tops of its ears.
If it did, I didn't see it because I didn't have time to actually focus in on his ears, because as soon as I set up, his hand stopped, and when his ears went back, that's when I looked up and I caught him going back. So I didn't see the tip of them. It didn't have. I just know they was just long and pointed from his head on up, and his ears went back before I can actually see the tip of them. They just folded back and they never came back up.
So no chance to tell if it had tufts. That's understandable. It looks like No More Funland wants to know, do you have a history of any paranormal encounters other than the Dogman?
No, that's about the only thing other than this gigantic snake I saw. We all saw that going across that dirt road, stretched from one end of that dirt road all the way across the other. That's about the only thing I ever saw.
That rattlesnake, that was one heck of a specimen. If there ever was such a thing as a Boone and Crockett rattlesnake, that's definitely one.
That was it.
That's a big one. This next one is from Kiri Hellier, and Kiri wants to know, sorry if this has already been covered, James, but did the eyes seem to have an illumination of their own rather than just reflected eye shine?
No shine whatsoever in his eyes. It was just brownish black eyes with a little bit of white I could see on both corners of it. And that was it. It wasn't no shining, no illumination or nothing. Just regular dog-like eyes to me.
Yeah, that helps too. There's no such thing as a Dogman encounter that's going to give you the warm and fuzzies, but this one here that James had, except for the fact of being so close to the window, everything besides that, it pushes all the buttons for being about as tame as can be. Thank goodness for that. I still wish it wouldn't have come up to your window the way it did, but other than that, everything else, it checks off all the boxes.
Oh yeah, like I said, it wasn't nobody that wasn't aggressive. Just like it was just like looking into one of like passing time. Just look, okay, I see you, you see me. We just look at each other, and I guess when y'all fell asleep, and maybe just say, okay, he's not looking at me anymore. You sleep by. Maybe it's just walk a level. Maybe it's just say, okay, you better have got away from this window. I don't know.
All we can do is guess.
Mhm.
The next one is from Jennifer Christensen, and Jen wants to know, did the Dogman have claws?
If it did, I didn't see him. Like I said, it had to have to tore that screen like it did. But like I said, when I looked up, his fingers was folded down and it froze. So I must have caught it at a downward motion when it froze up. And as it froze up, his eyes shifted to me and his ears went back. And I looked up at his ears right quick and I looked back down at his eyes and I just stayed locked with his eyes. But like I said, when I first seen his fingers, I could see him, I'm looking at his eyes, I could still see the image of his fingers down there, but it was folded over. So I didn't see it if it had claws or not. I'm pretty sure it did, in the way it tore that screen.
Well, you deserve credit for noticing all that you did. Like I said, most people wouldn't have noticed what you did, so hats off to you. I've got another one for you. This one's from Bang Bang, and she wants to know, James, did you say it tapped on the window?
It was not, I wouldn't call it tapping on the window. It was just like scratching on it. Because once it got through that screen, that's when its fingers started hitting that window. And I'm looking like, yeah, okay, this thing, that's what woke me up, because I can hear like a bunch of that, and that's what woke me up, and it was still going on. And so I'm like, okay, I woke up, or something is tapping on that window, or something is tapping in this house somewhere. And as I sit up and turned my head to the window, and wow, I was like, what is this?
Oh, I bet you said something worse than that. And understandably so. I get it. This next one is from Frost MC Dill, and they want to know, when it looked in the window, was it concentrating on him or was it looking at the inside of the room?
Its full attention was on me. 100%. Its eyes never left me. It stayed focused on me, and my eyes, like I said, I may have tucked my eyes, glanced away from it twice to see anybody getting up, make sure I'm trying to go out that door, and look at that old grandfather clock, the little dim light. But its eyes never left me. It stayed locked on me, like it was just looking at me, intrigued.
When you're having a conversation with someone, how if you're close enough, you can notice them looking left, right, left, right, left, right, looking from one eye to the next and back and forth. Did it ever do that with you, or was it just locked on one eye the whole time?
Locked on, was just looking at me one eye. Like I say, when I looked at it, my eyes didn't move. When I was sitting up, I'm looking into his eyes. It never blinked. Maybe if it did, I didn't notice it. Like it never blinked. I'm just looking at it. And after them little 45 minutes, I laid back down at that angle and nearly laid on top of one of my brothers. And that's the only time his eyes moved. And it kind of went to let me see if it's facing the window, went back to the right. Because I lay it back and at an angle. His eyes went to the right looking at me. Head didn't move at all. Just his eyes moved. And at that time, I could see more white on his left eye than the right one.
That's called the sclera of the eyeball. Yeah, most eyewitnesses, they never report seeing that. So yeah, you were up close and personal. Way too close for comfort there. The next one for you is from To Be or Not to Be, and they want to know, do you have any friends who have seen the Dogman?
I have one. She come to Subway, and she's one of the person I told, and she called a werewolf. She said she's seen a werewolf. Said she passed by it. She was she was coming down 195, and she works in Georgetown. She was coming back home down 195, and said she looked over and seen a werewolf. And I'm like, why when I with you? I'm thinking that to myself, and I told her about how I was going to do this here. And she said, well, that's when she told me. She said, I've seen a werewolf. I'm like, okay, this is a dog man. It's not a werewolf. They call him dog man. That's what I end up telling her. And to this day, she would still say it was a werewolf standing up, walking on two legs.
You know what they say, misery loves company. Of course, you weren't rattled by that encounter. You're not miserable about that experience and just trying to deal with it, come to terms with it. But it still had to be a source of comfort, knowing that you're not the only person in the world to have an encounter with one of these things. Now you definitely know that. But back then, when you spoke with her, you found that out pretty shortly after the fact. And thank goodness for that.
And then the other one that was, like I said, was a guy. He owned a supermarket, Rachel Supermarket. And his name was Mr. Rachel. And I was in there one day and he was telling about, he had any kind of with a Sasquatch. Now at that time, I'm highly skeptical. Okay, yeah, here we go again. Somebody seen a 9'8" walking thing on the hind leg. And I've been in these woods millions of times, hunting, fishing, climbing trees. Never seen anything like that. And now I know how many times those things like that saw me.
Yeah, it's a pretty strange feeling. I know. It looks like Shalom Shaw wants to know, do you think that if you hadn't woken up and saw it, that it would have gotten into your home?
I don't think so because that as flimsy as that house was, if it wanted to come in, it could have gotten in. It took either one of the doors. Like I say, they took the old house back then and they took a nail and took about a 6-inch by 2-inch little no block of wood and nailed that nail through it, nailed it into that wall, and then turned it sideways and held that door closed. And that was the only thing holding that door open. And my mother had tried to lock us out, and my younger brother have hit that door thinking it was open and knocked that nail and that piece of wood out that door, and that door flew right open. That thing could have come in there without anybody knowing. Only sound you would have heard was that nail and that piece of wood hitting that floor. That's the only sign it would have heard.
Well, as you know, it didn't have to use that door or
Oh no.
any window or anything like that to gain entry. It could have come through the wall, any of the walls in the home to get into the home. But yeah, obviously didn't want to do that. And thank goodness for that.
Oh yeah. Me and my older brother probably, because I guarantee you, if we really wanted to, it may have took us a little while, we probably could have went through that wall. It was just that thin.
Oh, I understand. It looks like Cookies and Cream must not have heard episode 597 either, because you addressed that in that episode, but no harm, no foul. Everyone's busy. They want to know, did you see it leave or did you go to sleep?
I fell asleep. I don't think I knew I was laying back almost on top of one of my brothers, and I was just watching and watching. And that last glance when I looked over, I'm making sure when nobody up, making sure I want to see my older brother sitting up or anybody sitting up. Probably would have scared my young brother to death. Now that's when I seen that it was 3 o'clock and close to 3 o'clock, and I just turned around, shifted my eyes back slightly, kept looking at, and next thing I know, I'm waking up.
It does make you wonder how long it stayed there, but it's a good thing you did just fall asleep, because if you didn't, who knows how much time would have gone by with you still there locked eye to eye with it.
Oh, that's right.
The next one is from Harrison Wargo, and Harrison wants to know, apologies if this has been addressed, but what was the overall feeling you got from it in the moments you had looking into its eyes while it was staring at you?
The very first feeling that came to me when I first set up, it was unbelief. I'm like, okay, and then it shifted from unbelief to what is this? I'm trying to figure out, what am I looking at? What's in this window? Is it an owl in this window looking in? Is it some raccoon or something like that? I'm going through all the little things I've seen down there in those woods down there. And like I said, I could not match it up with anything because of the way it had his head down. And like I say, that basically tricked me, because at that time I didn't realize that it was a snout down, going down to zero, got into that posture. And it just didn't, the feeling came over like, okay, I'm curious. I'm trying to figure out what it was. It's probably trying to figure out what I am. And I'm just looking at it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at an alien from outer space or a monster or something right there. Because like I say, back then, the term dog man never would have crossed my mind. The term werewolf, yes, werewolf crossed my mind. But the one I'm used to is just a regular man with a little fur around his face, and he had no snout whatsoever, and he wasn't as tall as his victims. And for his Bigfoot and all that, that one we seen at that theater, didn't look nothing like that. And so I didn't have no kind of, it's curiosity. I'm trying to figure out what it was. What am I looking at? I'm looking at something that I've never seen before, so I couldn't identify it to save my life.
I'm glad you're able to get some answers. We've got one more question for you, and this is from Becoming Amia Marie. And it looks like Amia wants to know, hey, James, can't remember from the first episode, and I'm just now hopping on the live, but did you or your brother ever mention your sighting to your grandparents? And if not, why?
Never, because I didn't want to put them. I really didn't want to scare anybody. My mother, my father, they probably wouldn't believe me anyway. They the first thing they probably would have said, "Yeah, y'all was so bad. It's probably the devil looking at you in the wonder." And I'm guaranteed that's what they would have said, and they wouldn't have believed me. And like I say, all the times me and my brother stayed down there, so that time we was in the ditch trying to find it, and I'm looking at that one and all that. He probably was too, and I'm scanning that horizon down there, never seen it again. So I picked it up, and that thing is long gone, so nothing to worry about. But I made sure I didn't take the bolt action shotgun with me. Like we went to my other grandparents' house in Airby, Georgia. I left the shotgun down there loaded, like I say, buckshot, slug, buckshot. So I'm figuring my granddad is see something like that, he's got that shotgun. And so it really didn't worry us like that. Plus, Mr. L up there with his 30-06, and he can shoot really good because he basically taught me. And I wasn't really worried. I'm figuring that if I wasn't scared, and that's my grandparent, maybe he wouldn't have been scared.
I said this several times before. I'll say it one more time. You definitely don't frighten easily. Holy cow.
Oh no.
I'd say you don't. Well, do you have any closing comments you want to share with us, James, before we get out of here?
Oh yeah, like I say, I'm that one person that of all the skeptics on this planet, I was number one. Like I said, I at that time, even after I seen that thing in the window, I knew there was things out there you couldn't explain. But like I'm saying, I'm for a Dogman or Sasquatch, I'm that last person on earth that would have believed in that. Like I said, I had a idea of what things were, identification. I even went as far as projection, holograms and stuff like that around people's in suits and all that. People with wooden footprint things making all that. And it, like I said, it took zero. And I'm glad it did, because it put my mind at rest. That was a little bit over 40 years. And out of all that time, I wondered, what was it that I seen? And I am so glad that when my son wanted that dog and I got him and I was playing with him that day and he got up on my arm, that put my mind at ease. I was so glad. I like to let everybody know, I know for a fact at least it was one. I don't know if it's still alive. I don't know if it's still out there. I don't know if it went away from Georgia. I know for a fact that it was at least one of those things. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen these encounters. And they're different kinds. I don't know about the different kinds. I know that kind is the one I saw. It may have been the same kind that everybody else seen. Like I say, I only seen the face, hands, and ears. That's why to this day, I wished I would have seen his entire body. Probably would have scared me half to death then, but I still wish I would have seen that entire body.
Yeah, probably would have, but it is what it is. I mean, you obviously weren't in control of that encounter. It was. I'm just glad that you saw it and it was a good thing. It hasn't ruined your life. You can still function and do what you need to do. Thank goodness for that. So I guess all we can do is play the glad game on that. And before the night when you had that experience, you never would have believed that anything like that could be out there. But after you had that experience, now you know there definitely are. But having said that, James, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of that experience for us in episode 597, number 1. But for you to come back and answer all these questions, really appreciate that too. So thanks again so much for your time.
You're welcome. Anytime.
It's appreciated. Well, having said that, thanks again so much and have a great night.
So do you.
Thanks. We'll see ya. Well, that's it for another episode, everyone. If you've had a Dogman encounter that you either want to speak with me about to get help coming to terms with, or if you want to be a guest on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com, submit a report. And if you do that, then I'll be more than happy to contact you and schedule a phone consultation with you. There's never any pressure if you need help coming to terms with your experience. Of course, there's never any pressure to come on the show as a guest. A lot of the eyewitnesses I speak with in private. You're never going to hear them on the show. So Please keep that in mind. But having said that, thanks again so much for listening, everyone. I really appreciate it. And of course, have a great night.